Superstar names like Ezekiel Elliott, Odell Beckham Jr., and Adrian Peterson were all over the news this week, and we'll let you know how they'll affect other player performances today. We'll break down all 13 games, and tomorrow night, of course, that includes a Monday night game. So all in told, 13 games, and we'll recap anything important that happened on the Thursday night game with the Eagles and the Panthers, with Carson Wentz and LeGarrette Blount continuing to perform well for their team. We've got the latest key injury news, starting or sitting decisions, and much more as the OFN on PSN starts now. All right, welcome to a Sunday morning edition of OFN Fantasy as we go over the latest player news prior to kickoff today in the NFL. Let's get right to it as I introduce my co-hosts and fantasy experts to the show. First, he's the chief fantasy analyst at Ourlads.com and the co-host of the Bill Roden on Sports podcast on iTunes. And he might just be proud to finally pump up his chest and say, yes, I'm a Jets fan, Jamal Murphy. Jamal, are you ready for the first place Jets pass game today?
Yes, sort of. I don't know about pumping my chest out, but
that's after the game if they win.
Yeah, I'm waiting to see how this game looks tonight, or today. But yeah, we'll see. 3-2, first place Jets. Jets, Jets.
All right, I like it, and he'll be at the game tonight. Today.
Yeah.
So hopefully, if they win, we're looking forward to hearing about how everything went. And of course, Jets Confidential Radio airs on Monday. Jan Levine will be with me, and if we can get any sound from Jamal, we will definitely play it on the air. Also joining us is sports producer and longtime fantasy expert who also, believe it or not, loves the Jets, Dan Weinrich. Dan, congrats on the kicking butt last week in our fantasy league, over 200 points. I thought you said you were having a down year.
Well, I didn't say it was going to end down. So start like the Jets.
There you go. All right, so let's get right to it here. Before we get into the game, starting with big Pittsburgh, Kansas City, and the players to keep an eye on in those games. Again, at the top, we talked about the big names from this past week, Jamal. Adrian Peterson, Ezekiel Elliott, Odell Beckham Jr. Let's start with Zeke. So now very, very tumultuous kind of up and down situation for fantasy owners that drafted Elliott. They probably felt pretty good after the first signs that it looked like maybe he'd play after all this season. Then it was like, okay, he's playing, but he's not the old Zeke, but at least he's playing, and I got him at a bargain, and now the news here. So how does that impact the owners?
Well, I mean, obviously it hurts him. We don't know what his status is. It looks like he'll probably, if I had to guess now, it looks like he'll probably serve that 6-game suspension. Maybe when it's all said and done, it's down to 4. But yeah, his owners are going to be without him. They're going to have to figure out what to do. They've kind of gotten used to him. I think it's even a worse situation now. If you went into the season, you drafted him, he was suspended right away. You kind of prepared yourself. You have your running back set and who's playing, ahead of him. But now all of a sudden it's like it's a joke to the team and to your system. You got to figure it out on the fly who your running backs are. So I think it's a tough situation, no question.
All right. And what about you, Dan, regarding Zeke? Would you panic at this point in time? And by the way, if you're an owner in another league, do you contact the owner who has Zeke and offer would you want him on your team? What would you offer to bring him over? Or if you've got him, do you just hold on to him?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty similar to David Johnson owners. I don't see getting any kind of worthwhile value from a trade, and you can't drop them. So you're just gonna, just like you'd have to suck it up if one of your star players got injured for a month. Just gotta try to ride through the storm.
So would you make a trade though? Like, would you try to make a trade? Would you try to get somebody that may be down on him?
I wouldn't, because look, if somebody was desperate and wanted the bottom of my bench, sure, but I don't foresee those kind of trades being accepted. So I'm not really worrying about Zeke, because although I was disappointed earlier in the season, I'm now quite happy that I don't have him on any of my
All right. And by the way, there is a player that was on your team that you had to let go this week, and that is Odell Beckham. Another situation where a star player, it really was a disappointing season. I mean, he was definitely a top pick and had the injury early on, just started to get going. Now the injury again, and this one ends his season, Dan.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I didn't foresee an injury, but I did favor Mike Evans over Odell Beckham in my preseason ranks, and in this particular league, because Odell Beckham's name was in my team name, I was like, I guess I'll take Odell over Mike Evans.
Good job with that.
Yeah, and then he changed the name of his team anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So
okay.
So that was a bad call all around.
Your team now
what are you gonna do? You can't predict that kind of injury.
What were you saying, Jamal?
What's the name of your team? What's the name of your team now?
Breeze in the Trap. Yep. So watch out, Drew Brees.
So watch out for Breeze.
That's right.
He's coming.
All right. And
no hits to the below the knee from linemen from him, hopefully.
And speaking of Breeze and the Saints, Jamal, Adrian Peterson's gone. I mean, kind of foretold this weeks ago. It just made no sense that he was there with Kamara brought in. They should have tried to make this trade even before the season started. Everybody knew what they had in Kamara. They knew. But whatever reason, maybe they did try to trade him. Who knows? Maybe they needed to wait for a team to be desperate like Arizona. Because we know this doesn't impact the Saints at all. So how does this impact Arizona and most, of course, importantly, fantasy owners?
I think for Arizona, I think it's an upgrade from Chris Johnson. But we'll see. You got to that Adrian Peterson is going to be motivated. You can't do any worse than he was doing for New Orleans.
True.
There's no question his fantasy value increases. I picked him up in at least one league just in case. I still would like to think he has something in the tank, but we'll get a chance to see. I know Arizona's offensive line is pretty shaky, but he's going to get his chances, and we'll see if he can still run hard. If he still has anything left in the tank, we'll be able to see pretty soon. I mean, if you're struggling at running back this week, you might even want to take a chance putting him in there. Compared to some other guys, like I was wrestling with, playing him or Forte, for instance, in a deep league where you have two bad choices. Who's to say you don't go Peterson there?
Interesting. I mean, I probably would. Yeah, that is difficult because of the fact that we have no idea, Dan, what to expect from Forte. We'll get with him in a minute when we talk about the Jet game because of his turf toe injury. But look, I mean, I guess we'll find out right away. If Matt Forte is starting and he's going to get a lot of reps, it would probably make more sense that Forte is the guy, especially against the Patriot defense. But that's the whole thing about fantasy football and why these are tough decisions, because you just don't know.
Yeah, I mean, if I had to choose, I would probably start Elijah McGuire over Forte, even if Forte is quote unquote the starter. We've obviously seen. I mean, Forte is a Hall of Fame player, but he's old now, and we haven't seen him look like a Hall of Fame player since maybe the beginning of last season, maybe, and that was just for a couple games. And now he's been hurt, so I don't really look to Forte to come back and have any kind of impact. Elijah McGuire, on the other hand, has he's got some real, what we say, spunk in his step. He can do some exciting things on the field, and I think even with if he gets 12 or 15 carries, I like my chances with him better than with Forte. As far as Adrian Peterson goes, I tried to pick him up. He was gone by the time I heard the news in every league I'm in. But I wouldn't really feel great starting him this week. Not because I don't think he can produce anymore, but because I just don't know how much he was able to get acclimated with the offense.
Sure.
They might just kind of start him slow. So
who would you start if you had to start one of them?
I mean, I'd probably go McGuire, Peterson, Forte in that order.
Okay. All right, we'll talk more about the Jets and the Patriots in just a second. But before we do that, let's talk about Pittsburgh and Kansas City as we go through each game on this Sunday for Week 7. And this will be our new day. And actually, we'll be on a little bit earlier starting next Sunday at 9 a.m. Eastern. Pittsburgh and Kansas City, Jamal. And you take a look for Pittsburgh. It's been all about the offensive in production of the Steeler offense. Even though Bell had a big game last year against Kansas City, let's not. Of course, they beat him in the playoffs last year. He had 170 yards. They just haven't been getting anything out of Martavis Bryant. Juju Smith has played a little bit better. I'm not sure. I'm sure he's probably available in most leagues. For Kansas City, it's more important, I think, when you look at Kansas City this week because of the injury to Conley. Not sure. I haven't got any updates on Wilson or Kelsey. But anything that you've heard so far regarding their injury status, because that's very important for Kansas City, for everybody really, the entire offense, depending on what happens with Kelsey.
Yeah, I mean, as far as I know, they're expecting Kelsey to play. I mean, as far as Pittsburgh, to me, the whole thing comes down to Ben Roethlisberger. Is he still the same guy? Is he capable of putting up big numbers to get Brown involved? Even Le'Veon Bell is dependent on that. So, I mean, until Ben gets his act together, it's going to be a problem. Obviously, those two you're going to play and they're going to put up numbers regardless. But a guy like Martavis Bryant, he's been struggling. I'm not going to put all his problems on Ben's shoulders because he's not a proven guy anyway. But you definitely, while Ben's struggling, you got to lay off Bryant.
Dan, what do you think about the situation with the Chiefs? Because no matter what, Kelsey playing, you don't know if he's going to last the game. It's a head injury. You don't know. And then again, as I mentioned, Conley out for the year, Wilson banged up. So what does that do with Hill and also Alex Smith and the running game?
I mean, I think you're pretty much doing what you've been doing. Travis Kelsey is expected to play. He wasn't on the injury report at the end of the week, so he's a must start. Obviously, you're talking about top 5 tight end, if not higher. You're starting Tyreek Hill. You're starting Alex Smith, who's in the running for MVP this season, but definitely starting him at home against a shaky secondary from Pittsburgh. And and that's it. And Kareem Hunt, of course, is probably the number one guy in the league going into this week. So you're definitely starting him. But that's it. There's nobody else I'm interested in on the Chiefs. And on the other side of the ball, I'm basically only starting Bell and Brown. I wouldn't start Ben. I don't think Ben is done. I think, we've seen this from him before where he's had his up and down season. We don't expect him to get blown out throwing 4 or 5 touchdowns against the Jags at home. That was a little bit more than you would tend to expect. But I still think he'll rebound. But I wouldn't start him this week. I wouldn't start. I like Juju Smith as a stash, but I wouldn't start him either. And Martavis Bryant, he's getting pretty close to droppable, but I'm not doing it just yet. But he's not. I have him on a couple teams, and I'm not starting him anywhere.
Speaking of quarterbacks, what about Carson Wentz? Has he now? Would you feel comfortable as a regular starting quarterback right now?
Yeah, he's on the fence for me in terms of that. In terms of a fantasy regular starting quarterback that you're going to go with every week, I think he's pretty close. I'm still not 100% sold. He's playing well now. Remember, we're only going into week 6. Plenty of time for him to start some sort of slump or whatever. He's only in his second year. He had a shaky second half of the season in his rookie year. But he looks good. I mean, obviously coming off that Thursday game, he looked really good. I would definitely feel free to start him next week. But I wouldn't trade. If you have another good quarterback on your roster, I wouldn't get too excited and trade that guy.
And Nelson Aguilar, he's got to be the top receiver on the Eagles right now, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. I mean, I have Alshon Jeffrey in the league, and I'm perpetually disappointed.
I know, I do too.
In his performance.
Yeah.
So, Aguilar, I saw Dan. You picked him up in the league. Smart
before the game was even over.
Gotta give it to you there. So Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Aguilar too. I mean, I'm not sold on him. I wouldn't, I don't know who the number one receiver is Ertz. It looks like that's the guy
Yeah,
to
I know.
have.
Yeah.
But Wentz, he throws it around to different guys, so you got to give him credit for that.
All right. Let's move on to the next game, and that
Wait, Cole, can I say one thing, Greg, real
Sure.
quick? I just think that I'm just laughing at Jamal saying he wouldn't start. Carson Wentz is the number one quarterback in fantasy football. Now, granted, he's had one more week, but this guy's putting up 30 points a game. Like, what do you need? What are you going to wait till next season to put him in your lineup?
I'm waiting. No, what I said was I said go ahead and start him next week. Yeah, he looks good. I'm just saying, I know, Dan,
I can't think of more than 5 quarterbacks that I'd start over Carson Wentz right now.
Look, you can't think of 5?
Not more than 5.
I don't know about that. I would put him. I would say he's like
Brady,
top
Breeze,
10 guy.
Brady, Breeze, Deshaun Watson,
Rodgers.
maybe Russell Wilson.
Rodgers.
That's about it.
Matt Ryan, you wouldn't start over him?
No way. Matt Ryan's got 3-4 touchdowns on the season. Are you kidding me?
So you don't think?
What about
I'm
Cam?
not starting guys
What about
because
Cam
of their
Newton?
name or history. I'm starting because of what they're doing.
What about
now,
Cam Newton?
This season.
Cam Newton?
No way. Cam Newton laid another egg for me on Thursday.
He had decent numbers.
He had 18 points.
What about Dak Prescott?
Nope, not with Zeke.
Well, actually, Newton had 25 in our league.
Okay, but Wentz had 32.
Right, 1 week.
It's not 1 week. It's all season.
Okay.
Carson Wentz has the most points of any
win
quarterback in fantasy. Period.
All right. Carson Wentz and Alex Smith at the top. And Deshaun Watson. Who would have thought that when the season began as far as quarterbacks are concerned?
I got to decide between starting Deshaun Watson and Drew Brees today, Greg, and I'm really not sure. I'm going back and forth.
But you're not going to drop Brees, right?
I'm not going to drop him, of course, but I might start Watson.
And you wouldn't want to trade him. You wouldn't trade Brees. You're not so high on Watson. You just think he's like a top 5
Brees.
guy.
You want to trade? Make me an offer. I would trade Brees today. I feel that confident in Deshaun Watson.
Okay. I'll look at that.
Yeah, because you got Ryan's your top quarterback in our league, Jamal?
Yeah, Ryan, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I got Matt Ryan, but I haven't given up on Matt Ryan at all. I mean, he had a shaky first quarter of the season, which might mean he's going to be, one of the top guys the rest of the way.
Yeah, we don't know.
I mean, that's what his history pretty much shows.
And he has, of course, the biggest issue though could be the offensive coordinator change.
Right. He also got Julio Jones back this week, so that's big.
All right. Green Bay, Minnesota. And Aaron Rodgers is now getting some help from Aaron Jones, who we talked about a few weeks ago about picking him up just before the game against the Bears. And then he blew up against Dallas, and he blew up because Ty Montgomery did not play. And now we're hearing, Dan, that Ty Montgomery may be back and ready to go with his rib injury. He may be sharing carries. This is a theme of all of my shows this year in football is that these coaches who won't go to backups and they're relying on older, veteran, more experienced players are driving me batty because they're wrong. Like 90% of the time, it takes injuries to let other players play. And if Mike McCarthy does not let Aaron Jones carry the ball 75% of the time, he's a loser.
I think you're probably an even better example of what you're describing is happening in Indianapolis with Frank Gore and Marlon Mack. But sticking with this game for now, I don't know if it's interesting because Ty Montgomery, I don't know if he exactly fills that description. He's not really a running back.
No, he's not.
He played the position for the first time last year.
Mm-hmm.
He's done nothing but he's been great for fantasy, but he gets banged up constantly because not only does he not have the body of a running back, he doesn't have that innate sort of knowledge of how to take hits. So you just see him getting like crumbled every time he's going up the middle. And he's playing today with multiple broken ribs. So as a running back where you're getting crunched by 300-pound guys, that doesn't seem like a recipe for success. So I don't think that Mike McCarthy is going to – I think I can't say exactly 75%, but I am expecting Jones to get the majority of carries because I just don't see how they could expect to put Montgomery in there for a line share and not expect him to exit the game injured once again.
Yeah, I mean, look, if McCarthy is this genius, like everybody says he is, even though he's been riding the coattails of Aaron Rodgers his entire career, then you've got Ty Montgomery now. Use him in a way where you can exploit the opposition. Put him in the backfield with Aaron Jones, and then make sure that he winds up getting put in a position where he's got a linebacker covering him out for passes. There's a way for you to exploit the defense when you have a weapon. You can use Montgomery as a weapon, Jamal, but he is not a regular running back. Aaron Jones is, and Aaron Jones has proved it. And if they let Aaron Jones be this year's version of James Starks, they have a real chance to win the Super Bowl.
Hey, I don't know. I'm not concerned with all that. All I know is I have Ty Montgomery on a couple teams, so I would love for him for McCarthy to keep giving him the rock.
It's not going to happen.
But in a football sense, I can't deny what you guys are saying is true. I was able to pick up Aaron Jones in another league. I'm starting him. I agree with Dan. I think he'll get about 75% of the carries, or he should. But I do hope that they figure out a way to keep Ty Montgomery involved, a la Ellington in Arizona, so he can keep giving me those big points.
Well, again, that's it. He's got to keep him involved. No problem with that. Just shouldn't be the primary ball carrier. And what about Minnesota, Jamal? Any news on Sam Bradford? No go again. I mean, what are we doing here? He shouldn't even probably be on anybody's team right now. He should be on the waiver wire, shouldn't he?
Yeah, I mean, Sam Bradford, just a pretty sad case. I mean, I don't know what's going on there. When he first got hurt, they said it was a bruise to the knee. I guess it's a serious bruise because we haven't seen him really since. I guess that first week was a complete and utter anomaly.
Well, he was healthy.
But I guess yeah, he was healthy for a week.
Yeah.
And he's gone now. So, but that hurts the rest of the team. And also, Diggs is out with an injury. Obviously, we know what happened with Dalvin Cook. Murray's an interesting case for Minnesota. Latavius Murray. Everybody ran and picked him up, including me, in different leagues, and he didn't produce at all. Had about
warned you about that.
yards.
Yeah, not me.
He did warn me. Yep. And so he doesn't look like any kind of an answer at all. In fact, it looks like Jerick McKinnon is the guy you want.
It's got to be the man
on that team.
Yeah.
He actually came. He showed improved last week. He had way over 100 yards total. So McKinnon is the guy, and he's also going to be involved in the passing game. So he's going to give you those points for PPR leagues too.
Yeah, especially with Diggs' injury, Dan, because as Jamal said, 95 yards rushing, 6 for 51 receiving. So he's going to become now, it's taken him a few years, college quarterback. Maybe he's finally got it. And definitely he's a starter, and I wouldn't even waste my time very much with Murray. Same situation. For me, Murray's just a guy that I would use to take some pressure off of McKinnon, rest him a little bit, and maybe on short yardage rushes. Other than that, McKinnon should be out there 80 to 85% of the time.
Yeah, I don't want anything to do with Latavius Murray. If McKinnon's available, I'm grabbing him, but I do caution a little bit of a wait and see approach, because he did obviously look great last week. But
sure, it's 1
Jerick
week.
McKinnon,
yeah,
this is not his first opportunity.
Sure.
And in the past, he's disappointed over the last 2 seasons. So
1 week.
If you can get him, great, but don't throw him in your lineup and expect you're going to get 20 points out of it necessarily.
What are you talking about? McKinnon's the number 1 fantasy running back right now.
What do you mean? Based on what metric is he the number 1? Because I still got Kareem Hunt. Thanks.
I'm just joking.
No, anyway, that is actually the deal, though, but it is the Packers defense. So McKinnon, you should play it week by week, and definitely if he can't produce a good week this week against the Packers defense, even with Keenum, who played pretty well last week, then I think you got the answer that he's going to be Mr. Inconsistent.
But before we jump off this game, though, Greg, I will mention real quick, deep sleepers. Look for Michael Floyd. With Diggs out, this might be his chance to actually make some noise. And I remember you brought him up weeks ago, Greg. I think this might be a time where he actually shows whether or not he still has anything.
Yep.
Who's the quarterback?
And on the QB front,
Keenum.
Remember, Teddy Bridgewater might be back before the end of the season now. So this team might not have Sam Bradford at the helm by the end of the year. So if you're really hurting for QBs in a very deep league, you might keep your eye on Bridgewater.
That team is just an injury nightmare. I mean, everybody has something wrong with them.
Yeah,
Well, they're not as bad as the Giants.
Yeah, we'll get into their nightmare a little bit later on, but the Jets are the story of New York right now. First place on the line against the Patriots, and Jets have won 3 straight. But as we talked about, it's the running back situation. Powell, who usually does miss a few games during the year, this is a bad time for him to go out. But again, McGuire's gotten reps, as we talked about. How healthy will Forte be? So we know what Dan thinks about it. What about you, Jamal? If you have Forte and McGuire and you have both of them, you start McGuire?
Yeah, I definitely go McGuire. Even, he didn't play well last week in Cleveland, but still got looks. I think he had about 10 carries. They were looking for him in the passing game. They obviously like him. We know that. We know he is. He does have explosion. We saw that the prior week against Jacksonville. So I definitely think you go McGuire's way with that. And really, they don't have many other options because McCown can't really throw the ball. They definitely don't trust him enough to let him throw that many times. I don't think he's had over 220 yards probably in any game. And we know their wide receivers are really nothing special. So McGuire, you got to expect them to try to lean on him and try to figure out different ways to get him the ball.
Well, yeah, that all depends if Forte's healthy. If Forte's healthy, they'll probably split carries. But you would also think that McGuire, even if they split carries, he's definitely healthier, younger, fresher legs. What about the recommendation we made last week for Severian Jenkins, Dan? Did you take our advice and pick him up?
I did, but then I went on my own advice and dropped him and picked up Tyler Croft, which ended up being disappointing.
Didn't he go to Rutgers?
That's the backup to Tyler Eifert out in
I know.
who had two touchdowns the week before, and he gave me disappointing performance. However, I picked up Austin Severian Jenkins in that league, and I'm injected him into my lineup for this week, expecting big things.
You're always a week behind, Dan. What's going on?
Yeah, maybe that says bad news for Jenkins today. But hey, he'll with the Patriot defense, and I believe Gilmore's out, right? Corner for the Patriots. So if that's already a defense that, okay, they played pretty well against Tampa, but that's 1 week. They're still not the team, nor will they be the team that they were last year defensively. So we'll see if the Jets can take advantage. Jenkins, Forte, and Powell and McGuire. As far as the Patriots, Gronk's going to play, right, Dan? He's all set to go?
And I haven't spoken to him personally, but I do have him in my starting lineup because he is expected to play this week.
All right.
But they've definitely caught us with a curveball last week's Thursday night game by only declaring him inactive, like literally within an hour of the game. So definitely check the game. Don't set your lineup and go out to brunch and forget about it.
Can't do that, especially with the Patriots. And Rex Burkhead is back. So would you pick up Rex, Jamal, with that deep running back unit?
Yeah, if you're in need of spot duty at running back, I think you got to go Rex. Whenever he did play, he was involved in the offense. Brady found him. Belichick, he fits that Patriots mold. So yeah, I would pick up Rex.
All right. Next up, we have Rams and Jags. Who would have thought that this would be a game to watch, even in week number 6 in the NFL? But it is Rams and Jags, and the big story is Leonard Fournette, the running back for Jacksonville, because Blake Bortles won last week, and he completed 8 of 14 passes for 95 yards and a pick. So it's all Leonard Fournette and the running game. Question I have for you, Jamal, is if you have Leonard Fournette, would you pick up Chris Ivory?
I mean, it always depends on your roster. Like, do you have what's the rest of your roster look like? Do you need help at other positions? If you have a spot for a player who's not playing, or a guy just in case something happens, you want to pick up Ivory, because if something happens to Fournette, Ivory's going to get plenty of looks.
Okay.
He's played well in the amount of carries he's gotten, so yeah.
All right. And as far as the receiving situation with the Rams, Dan, which receiver would you look at? And would you be interested in Tyler Higbee? Here's a guy that had a very big career at Western Kentucky. And so he is now a hot commodity at tight end over the last couple of weeks, taking over for Everett at that position.
Well, I'm not, there are a lot of tight end sort of streamers out there, as we talked about Austin Sperry and Jenkins before. I'm not really reaching for Higbee just yet. As far as the receivers go, I got two of them on different teams, Watkins and Cup, and I'm not starting either of them this week. Not against that Jacksonville secondary that really put the smack down on Pittsburgh last week. And they've both been wildly inconsistent.
Okay.
So I actually, in one of my leagues, I made this sort of bold call to start Aguiar over Sammy Watkins, which definitely went against the prognosticator predictions, and
Who's
that
Aguiar?
one turned out well for me. Aguiar.
Who is that?
Nelson Aguilar.
Oh,
That's how I call
Aguilar.
him.
Okay.
Aguilar.
Got it.
Aguilar.
Very important.
I mean, spell it phonetically if you want us to get it right. You know what I mean?
Well, I was thinking Rams, but then I kind of put that together.
Yeah, no,
okay.
I jumped back into that old game because I started him over Watkins, which I was very leery about. I felt like, am I going to regret this? But I don't think any of the Rams receivers or Goff are going to have a good game today.
All right.
Jacksonville.
Detroit and the Saints. And as we mentioned, of course, Breeze getting back apparently is a big tackle, Teron Armstead, and that's a big addition. He's been out all season. Now you have Willie Snead.
And Willie Snead.
All right. So what? Willie Snead is definitely playing?
He's definitely playing. We don't know how much he'll
playing.
play. Well, that's the word. That's the word out of New Orleans that he will be in the game, but at a limited.
But you wouldn't start him, would you? Unless you had to.
I'm starting him.
You're crazy then. Why? Who's your backups? Who do you got? Who are you starting him over him in our league?
Let's see. Is it in our league? I think I actually chose to start him in one of my other leagues.
Yeah, you got him in your starting lineup in our league.
Oh, I do in our league.
So you're starting him over. Let's see. I don't see anybody. Oh, no wonder why you were backing up Carson Wentz. You have Carson Wentz.
Exactly.
Well, why didn't you start Carson Wentz over Breeze then?
Well, what did I say before? There are
number one
3 or 4 guys I start over Wentz, and one of them is Drew Brees.
Okay. Let's see. Oh, you have Jonathan Stewart?
We can pull up the transcript.
Boy, you have Jonathan Stewart? Boy, speaking of Jonathan Stewart, I don't know who's worse, Jonathan Stewart or David Shula. Because how on earth did Carolina continue to try to put the ball in the hands of Jonathan Stewart the last 2 weeks when he has done absolutely nothing? He is done. You have McCaffrey. You have Samuel the rookie. You got electrifying guys. And you're wasting your time handing the ball off to Jonathan Stewart.
Riverboat run.
It's really frustrating because he's getting carries. He's had at least, I think, 12 carries in every game this season. But he's literally done nothing.
Yeah, look at this. The last 2 weeks combined 26 attempts for 17 yards. I said that right. 26 attempps, 17 yards.
How is that possible?
Let's just keep handing the ball off to him. I don't really care about this play. Let's hand it off to Stewart. I'm worried about the next play. I mean, it's just awful. But anyway, I do see you have Alex Collins against Chicago. You didn't start Aguilar, so you did decide to go with Snead over say Alex Collins and Aguilar, because you're not going to go with Delaney Walker and you're not going to go with Cooper Kupp.
Well, I picked Aguilar up. I think I had Mike Wallace on the team, and I picked him up during the Thursday night game after he scored the touchdown. So I didn't really have a chance to do that.
So
but
just
I did
Collins.
Start Snead over Mike Wallace and Cooper Kupp, which is I think is saying something.
Sure. Well, Collins would be the one guy based on what you have left over Snead, but all right, I can see.
I love Collins' talent, and I'm trying to hold on to him anywhere I can because he's an electrifying player. But he fumbles the ball, and Harbaugh doesn't like that, and he's just, he's leaning on Buck Allen, so it's hard to count on. I think Alex Collins could be a really big producer some point in the season, but I can't take a gamble on him just yet.
All right, and what
Not
about
in the starting lineup?
Matthew Stafford, Jamal? He's dealing with the ankle injury. They say he's going to play. Would you still start him?
No, I'd stay away from Matthew Stafford. He didn't play well last week anyway. Now they're talking about the injury. I know they're playing New Orleans, right?
Yeah.
So he should have, it should be a shootout. He should have some opportunities, but I've thought that a couple of weeks, and he didn't really produce for me. So I remember a couple of weeks ago we were discussing who we want, him or Cam, and I think Cam is back on top of that discussion.
All right, Miami and Atlanta and the Dolphins. If you have, Jay Ajayi, the Dolphins have no rushing touchdowns, Jamal, none. And would you even start Ajayi this week or at any point until he gets going? Because they're a complete mess. Their offense is terrible right now.
It is, but I would assume few people have that kind of depth at running back where they could sit Ajayi. He's still probably. Most rankings have him as like a top 15 running back for this week.
Really?
That's
okay.
It's hard. It'd be hard to sit him.
All right. Do you agree with that, Dan, as a top 15 running back this week?
Yeah, I have Ajayi and I'm starting him. I always talk about, kind of getting confused between expectations and performance. Like, for example, we talked about the Eagles wide receivers and who's the top guy. I still think Alshon's the top guy. It's just that Aguilar has surpassed expectations, so you're excited about him, and Alshon hasn't reached expectations. But that doesn't mean. So, for example, here, I wouldn't go starting an Elijah McGuire or an Alex Collins or Jalen Richard, somebody that we're sort of like.
Sure.
Kind of excited about. I'm not putting them over Jay Ajayi. I wouldn't even start Kamara over Jay Ajayi because we saw that he's got the talent. He is the bell cow, and I kind of feel like it's just a matter of time. I'm not giving up on him just yet.
All right.
I would start. I would put Kamara in if I were you.
Okay.
Well, unfortunately, I don't have that chance in this one league. But thanks for the advice, Jamal.
All right, we'll
anytime.
See how it goes next week. On next week's show. All right, Tampa Bay and Arizona. And as far as this one is concerned, you have Adrian Peterson, as we talked about, so we don't know what's going to go on there. Here's the question, Jamal. Would you, if you had both receivers, would you go with either J.J. Nelson or John Brown?
I would go John Brown. They're saying he's healthy now. He was coming into the season. He was supposed to be the number 2 guy. Number 2 wide receiver on the team, obviously got injured, and then other guys surpassed him in the depth chart. I think he got about seven targets last week, which was, I think, second to Fitzgerald. So
and he played most of the game.
Yeah, so I think you got to go John Brown.
Yeah, I agree. I picked him up a couple of weeks ago, and I don't know if I'm going to need to start him soon, but the whole deal with him, of course, is staying healthy. So, but Arizona, you just don't know what to trust with that offense right now. Anyway, maybe Peterson can help out the passing game. What about Doug Martin? I have him in our league. He finally got an opportunity to play, and now he goes up against Arizona this week. He's definitely a start. So he looked pretty good, Dan, in just his first game since not playing so far.
Yeah, you just said it. He looks like a start. I had a friend text me this morning to ask if he should start Kamara or Martin. And I said, I want to tell you Kamara because I'm excited about him, but I think the smart play is Doug Martin because he is, most likely going to get 20 to 25 carries and stands as good a chance as anybody of scoring. So I would definitely get Martin in your lineups if you got him. This is what you've been holding him for.
Well, like you said, it's about Kamara. You're thinking and hoping that he's going to do something. And that's not the way to go, especially with a rookie. And again, as I said in the very beginning of the season, Ingram was going to get more touches than Peterson. Now that Peterson's out, I just think this means more touches for Ingram. Not that Kamara's not going to get touches. He will. And will get more. But this is more for Ingram than it is for Kamara.
Totally agree. I've heard a lot of prognosticators talking about, this is going to be a big uptick for Kamara. I don't think that Peterson was vulturing from Kamara. I think all the situations where Peterson were in are situations where Ingram otherwise would have been in.
Yeah.
So I totally agree. I think it should be a big boost for Ingram, and Kamara should be the same, which has been great. He had 10 catches in their last game. There's nothing wrong with that.
Now I will say this though, and I had a decision that I had to make, either Lynch or Ingram. And the reason why I'm leaning towards Lynch is because of the matchup. Chargers are a really bad run defensive team this year, and Lynch started to get going a little bit. Derek Carr is back. And Detroit is not a bad run defensive team either, as we saw last week. So just the matchup there, I decided, you know what, maybe I'm going to go with Lynch. What would you do, Dan?
I'd start Ingram, definitely. Lynch has just been too inconsistent for me this year, and like we just said, I think Ingram's only gonna. I mean, yes, Detroit is tough against the run, but they're at home, and you have a reliable starter. I think you start him. So I would go with Ingram over Lynch myself.
Jamal?
Yeah, I feel the same way. Lynch, you just don't know what you're going to get right now. You don't know what's up with the Oakland offense. So, yeah, I would lean Ingram.
All right, let's go now to the next game, which is the Chargers in Oakland. And Mike Williams, the rookie, looks like he's going to make his debut. Not sure exactly what that's going to do. Phillip Rivers has been putting up a little bit better numbers, but that's because they're usually behind. We finally started to see a little bit more out of Hunter Henry, but the big story, of course, is Derek Carr, Jamal, and what this will do potentially for players like Amari Cooper, who you have.
Yeah, no, Carr. I mean, it's a good thing. Remember, Amari Cooper wasn't doing anything with Carr either.
True.
For all those weeks, and now Carr is back and definitely not 100%. But it is better than having EJ Manuel in there. So we can hope and pray that Amari Cooper has maybe 2 catches this week. That'd be good.
All right. And what about Marlon Mack in the next game, Indianapolis and Tennessee, Dan? Marlon Mack, by the way, did not get a lot of touches last week, but he did capitalize big time when he did get those touches. So, as we've been saying at the top, and we've been saying all year, will the coaching staff stick with the older, slower veteran, or will this finally be a wake-up call? I know Mack's been hurt, but will this be the wake-up call that, you know what, we got to get Mack now a lot more touches and maybe even more touches than Gore?
I don't think so. I would be surprised if that happens. We've seen this all season. You saw it with Alex Collins. You saw it with Elijah McGuire, where the young rookie in just a handful of carries vastly outproduces the veteran that's ahead of them on the depth chart. But coaches are slow to hand off the reins to a rookie. I think Frank Gore is valued probably much more for his experience and wherewithal on the field than his running ability, and I don't see that changing this week. I think you've seen Marlon Mack definitely look great. I picked him up on a couple of leagues, but I noticed in Yahoo they're predicting Marlon Mack to have more points than Frank Gore. It's certainly a possibility, but I wouldn't predict that. There's no reason they're not going to bench Frank Gore. They're basically going to drive that car till the wheels fall off. So,
and then we also talked about.
I'm starting Gore personally. I'm starting Gore over Mack this week.
Okay, and we also talked about Murray and Henry in that situation a lot this year, and Murray got the bulk of the carries against Miami, so apparently he is still the guy there. Not that it helped Tennessee. So the big question, Jamal, is Marcus Mariota. And whether he plays or not, nobody knows. It's an extra day, Monday night. So, but who knows? It looks like we may get Jacoby Brissett and Matt Castle. I'm sure that's exactly what the Monday night people were hoping for when they put this game together.
Yeah, no, sounds great. At least Brissett has been pretty decent.
Two former Brady backups.
Yeah, former Brady backup. Yeah, I mean the Henry. Murray situation, you just got to stay away from that. I don't know what to tell people. Let's just stay away.
All right. And then the Giants in Denver, that's the Sunday night game. And the Giants with Beckham out and Marshall out and Shepard out. And I guess maybe they're saying that this might help Evan Ingram. He is my tight end. I certainly hope so, even though it didn't help him last week. But we'll see. They got Denver is a very good defensive team. But maybe the big question here, though, is the running back situation, Dan, with Darkwa, Gallman, and Vereen. But another situation, even though Perkins is a younger guy, but still He was doing nothing. Everybody blamed the offensive line. Perkins gets hurt, and Darkwood and Gallman. All of a sudden, wait a second, we're running the football. They combined for 19 carries, 126, and a touchdown, and even Shane Vereen got in on the action. So, but if you had to start one of the three, who would you start?
Man, I mean, I tell you, Greg, I really wouldn't. I would try to avoid at all costs starting any Giant. I think this game is gonna be a total blowout. I really can't see how the Giants are gonna move the ball at all at Denver. But if I had to pick one, I mean, I really don't want to start anything this week, so I'll kind of answer your question a little differently. I'll say Gallman is the guy I would want long term of all of them. I think Paul Perkins has shown me absolutely nothing this year, so I can't trust him. Darkwood looked good at times, but he can't seem to stay on the field. And Gallman definitely looks like, but for the eye test, the best guy out there. So I would like him if I had to pick one guy out of their backfield. But again, I'm not starting any of them this week. I'm not starting Roger Lewis either. I just don't see, I don't see how the Giants score at all.
Would you start Lewis, Jamal? Still there, Jamal?
Well, I'll answer for him. No, I mean, the thing is, everyone got really excited about Lewis. But, Greg, you remember when Quincy Enunwa went down and everybody got all excited about Robbie Anderson? Oh, they have to throw the ball to somebody. It's going to be Robbie Anderson, right? Oh. What ended up happening there? He's had an okay season, but I don't think you can just assume, okay, these guys are out, this guy's up, and he'll now produce.
Well, actually, he does have Jamal does have Lewis on his roster starting.
Yeah, I'm back.
There's your answer, Greg.
Sorry about that, guys.
So you have him starting over, let's see, Hearns, Murray, Wayne Gallman. So yeah, I can see probably why you might have him starting. But
and I do feel like, I mean, it's a different situation with McCown and Eli Manning. Eli Manning is going to throw the ball. That's just all. That's all he can do. He'll probably throw 40, maybe 50 times. I don't care who the defense is, and he has to throw. So 10 of those are probably going to go towards Lewis, the only wide receiver he has even close to any chemistry with. So, and Lewis had a touchdown last week. Had about 3-4 receptions total before that. So he's somewhat familiar with him. I think it's not a bad bet to think that Lewis might, get you maybe even a touchdown, but maybe, like 60 yards, 4 or 5 catches, something like that.
Well, Lewis is, of course, he's on Sunday night. So here's another question: is if you're kind of conflicted about who to start, let's say you got Roger Lewis and again, I'll throw in Allen Hearns, and you're kind of conflicted. You're like down the middle. You're kind of, I'm not sure, weighing the pros and weighing the cons, Dan. Do you say, hey, you know what? This is a game. I'm supposed to have fun. I'm supposed to enjoy myself. I'm flipping the coin here. I might as well flip a coin with a guy that's playing on Sunday Night Football.
I think there are very rare instances where you have certain kinds of players that have the ability to elevate their game for nationally televised games.
No. For you. Because let's say, you know what? I don't have time to watch Allen Hearns and the Rams on Sunday, but it's a Sunday night game. Gives me an excuse to watch it, get interested in it. It's the only game going on. I wasn't sure anyway. It was a flip of the coin. I'll take the guy that I can watch the game with.
No, absolutely not. I don't give anything. I wouldn't give any credence whatsoever to my ability to watch it. I'm strictly out here picking who I think is going to produce.
Okay.
And in this instance, I would disagree with Jamal. I would get Hearns in that game because there's this thing in Denver called the no-fly zone. They have a pretty tough defense.
No, that's actually Seattle's. You can't take that from Seattle. So they can try, but they can't. That's Seattle's.
All right. I thought no-fly zone was Denver's defense.
Well, they can share it all if they want, but Seattle, that's where I heard it first. So Denver didn't have a no-fly zone until 2 years ago? Seattle had one 5 years ago.
Well, regardless of who owns the copyright to the nickname, they certainly have a very stout defense with an amazing secondary, and it's just hard for me to imagine Roger Lewis doing anything against, those guys.
It is. That's the NFL. That's why you
and
never
it's not
know.
like they haven't heard of him. They know they know there's 2 guys here who have ever played in the NFL before. And one, and not much, but basically Roger Lewis, Evan Ingram. That's all we have to worry about. And I think that those guys are going to have a very long day.
Or what about you, Jamal, in those situations, 50-50? Do you go with the guy that you can watch as opposed to not? Or it doesn't really ever factor into your thinking?
Yeah, I don't think it factors in unless it's like some subconscious thing. But no, I would try to steer away from that.
All right, let's go now to Cleveland, Houston. Of course, Deshaun Watson has been a freak. And that's in a good way. 5 more touchdown passes last week. And Will Fuller's getting into the act, Jamal. So is Will Fuller a start?
Yeah, I think so. I think he's proven that. Unless you have some people ahead of him doing more, but I wouldn't have a problem starting Will Fuller.
And with Cleveland, Njoku's another tight end that finally had a big breakout week last week. He's going up against the Houston defense, and Kenny Britt's got a knee injury. So would you take anybody on Cleveland, or would you maybe just go with Duke Johnson? Would he be the only guy, Dan?
Yeah, Duke Johnson's the only guy I feel good about starting. Njoku is, he's one of these flyer guys that he could definitely have a good week, but there's a lot of these guys, like we talked about, like the Austin Sperry and Jenkins of the world. I'd probably lean towards Austin Sperry and Jenkins. I'd maybe go with Njoku over, say, Jared Cook, who had a costly fumble last week. So
of course, because he stinks.
Yeah.
We've said that for the last couple of weeks to stay away from that guy.
Yeah. So, I mean, those are the kind of guys you'd be comparing, or, you'd be debating over starting over. So I would lean towards Njoku over those guys, but I don't feel great about him. Duke Johnson's really the only guy I feel great about.
Okay.
I did see that somebody in one of my leagues dropped Isaiah Crowell, and I quickly put in a waiver claim. I don't like him this week, but this has been the history with Crowell. And he's not going anywhere. So be patient with him.
They would be better off. We said this before. They would just be better off to run their offense the way the Patriots do and a few other teams are doing. Use Duke Johnson as your main guy. And you play Crowell a little bit, 25% of the time, but Duke Johnson needs to get as many reps as possible. They'd be better off for it. He's just way too dynamic. And as far as Baltimore and Chicago, Jamal, what about Macklin? It looks like he may not play this week with a shoulder injury. Mike Wallace had one of his great games. He probably won't do that again this year. So obviously that's a guy that there's no reason to think that that'll happen. So the other question is, how much longer do you give it before you, especially if Baltimore is playing well, if they are going to continue to play well, how long do you wait before you pick up Danny Woodhead?
That's a good question. He's been off the radar. I'm not even sure what's his injury status.
I think about week 12 maybe, something like that. He may not come back until a few weeks before your playoffs start.
Yeah, I grabbed him. I have one league that has an IR spot, so I did grab him there. But if you got someone on your bottom of your bench that you really don't think is ever going to do anything for you, then by all means go grab him. But there's no guarantee. Danny Woodhead is almost as old as I am, and I'm not a young guy. So there's no guarantee he even sees the field again this year. And remember, before the season, the reason his average daily position dropped so much is because he has such an amazing history of injuries. So to think this 34-year-old guy is going to come back from this injury and be all good, that might be a bit of a pipe dream.
All right, and then finally, San Francisco, Washington. Looks like Kelly's out again, and Trent Williams may not play. That's a game time decision. That could be interesting. Of course, the Niners have kept just about every game close, but they keep losing. What about the Redskins? Anything? What would you do with the running back situation again? Is it Thompson again, Jamal? Or would you go with the rookie Perine?
P. Ryan. I wait and see on P. Ryan. He's been, he hasn't been great. I would definitely. He's definitely a stash guy. I think it's not bad if you have him on your roster and wait for him. But I think you go Thompson, even though I'm pretty sure that his time shining as a fantasy stud running back is probably done. But he, in a PPR league, he'll probably get you some points.
All right, so that will wrap it up. Anything else, Dan? You're all good to go. You're going to be watching the game today at home, unlike Jamal, who will be there?
Yes, I will. Unlike Jamal, I'll be watching all the games because I'll have my red zone locked in. Although I'm probably going to lean a lot on I'll be leaning on the Jets that game, until it gets ugly.
All right.
If it gets ugly, then I'm back to the red zone.
All right, well, let's hope it doesn't. Jamal, enjoy the game.
Yeah, I'll try.
All right, that'll wrap it up here. So don't forget, everybody, we're going to be back on Monday recapping the weekend in the NFL and college football. And Jamal will join us, or Dan, to talk about the big stories from the weekend, or Sunday, actually, because that's right, it's Sunday. So that's it, tomorrow. Can you believe it? But we'll be here every Sunday now, 9 o'clock in the morning, so check back with us next week for another OFN Fantasy show. Don't forget, you can also check out all our shows on demand, either on our YouTube page under Prime Sports Network or our iTunes page under Prime Sports Network. You can follow us on Twitter at PrimeSN. Thanks for tuning in to OFN Fantasy. For Jamal Murphy, for Dan Weinrich, I'm Greg DePalma. We'll see you next time.